I bought this business last year for $1.4 million at 24 years old. It makes me about 50K a month profit, and I'm only here 2 to 4 hours every week. That's because last year I worked hard, I got a good management team in place, and now the shop is ready to perform whether I'm here or not. I bought this business right in the heart of Simi Valley. As you can see, there's tons of businesses, tons of cars, but my business is right here. Even though there's millions of small businesses all across America, just one business can change your life. I know it did for me. I'm gonna be giving you guys an in-depth tour of the entire shop, then go back to my desk and break down all the numbers and how I'm able to generate anywhere between $500,000 and $600,000 per year from one boring business. Come on in. This is my office. This is where customers come when they're gonna hang out, wait for their car to get fixed. One thing that was really important for me was to make sure that I set up a customer experience unlike anywhere else. I wanted customers who came to my shop to feel like they were getting a premium quality service. You'll see here I added a couple additions of some high-class Rolex books. When customers come in, they see things like this gives a premium value. And after you're done in the waiting room, you can take a stroll to the front desk. But first, I gotta point out my Liqui Moly shelves. Liqui Moly is one of the premier brands in the automotive sporting industry. Having this on display builds a lot of trust with car enthusiasts. Pro tip is understanding the art of reciprocity. If customers ask about any of these items, we give it to them for free. This allows the customer to feel taken care of and they wanna reciprocate the feeling. So by that, maybe they'll leave us a great review or tell their friends about us. I had my employees put up the lights just to get the festivities going. What's going on, Trev? All my employees get 2 daps per day, mandatory. Now let's check out the garage. This is just a normal everyday garage, but it makes crazy profit. Each of these bays is able to turn out up to 3 or 4 cars a day. The average repair order is $1,200. So that means each of these lifts brings in over $3,600 per day. When owning a mechanic shop, having as many bays as possible is important because this allows you to bring in as many cars as possible. When I was looking for my shop, I wanted to make sure I had at least 5 bays. Anything below that, you might run into some trouble with not being able to get enough revenue to cover the overhead. And as you guys know, there's a lot of auto repair shops way smaller than this, and they can go as big as a 10 to 20 bay dealership. At the end of the day, it's the customers bringing in a car that need a repair or a service, and you providing that service at a high quality. Do this enough times and you got yourself a thriving business model. In the beginning, I had no idea that buying businesses was gonna be my route to financial freedom. But after some hard work, I realized that it doesn't matter what business you buy as long as you buy right. For me, this was my first purchase. And after I learned enough about buying businesses that I knew I could keep it going. This is one of many. So now I'm gonna take you inside and show you the breakdown of exactly how I bought this business. All right, so now I'm back at the desk and these are the numbers. I bought this business for $1.4 million total purchase price. The business was doing $600,000 a year in EBITDA. This is another term used in the business acquisition space, which represents profit. When buying businesses, you buy them off a multiple of EBITDA. Businesses under $1 million purchase price, I like to buy for below 3x multiple. That means if a business is doing $100,000, I don't want to pay more than $300,000 for this business. So for my business, I paid 2.3x for it. I financed the majority of this business with an SBA loan using the 90-5-5 method. What the 90-5-5 method is a way for you to buy a business without having to put the full SBA required 10% down payment. What I was able to do was get the seller to hold 30% of the total purchase price in the form of a seller note, which I would pay back to the seller over 5 years with interest. Because I was able to get the seller to take such a large note, the bank allowed me to use the seller note as equity in the total purchase price. So what that looks like is the bank covers 65% of the total purchase price, the seller covers 30%, and I cover the last 5%. So I was all in on this business for $70,000. So if you want to get a deal done just like this, there's 2 things you have to know. One is never do a deal without a seller note. I always tell the seller they have to carry some percentage of the total purchase price as a note. To me, if the seller isn't willing to keep some skin in the game, I don't want to take the risk on 100% of that business. So by the seller taking a note, that allows me to de-risk the total acquisition. If a seller will not take a note, I will not purchase the business. I need to see that the seller believes in my ability to keep running the business after they're gone, and that the seller actually believes that the business is going to keep making money after the close of the deal. The second thing you need to know is that a lot of banks do not understand the 90-5-5 method. You have to go through a lot of banks before someone's gonna give you a yes. Just because the first bank tells you that it can't be done does not mean it's not possible. A lot of bankers who've been in the industry for a long time have never done any sort of creative funding. That's where you watching this video gives you a leg up on all the competition. The main secret of finding these banks is you're not gonna wanna go to Chase and you don't wanna go to Bank of America. You wanna go to mid-sized banks. For me personally, I went to Bank of the West, which is now BMO Harris Bank. These banks are more likely to give you a loan using creative strategies such as the 90-5-5 method because they don't have a book of business as large, and so they care more about catering to their customers, which is you, the loan borrower. As a quick rule of thumb, you do not want to pay 3x for businesses doing less than $1 million of EBITDA, because what will happen is the debt that you have to repay will be too high, and businesses that are that small tend to be more risky in nature and come with a lot of seasonality. What's important to understand about a lot of these deals is the debt service coverage ratio. By paying 3 times profit for a business at the current interest rate for 10 years, you're able to secure a debt service coverage ratio of above 2 to 1, which banks love to finance. So understanding debt service coverage ratio is very important. The fastest way to calculate debt service coverage ratio is to take the total profit divided by the total annual debt payments. So for my business, the annual revenue was just under $2 million with 30% profit margins. Each month, I pay back $13,000 a month to the bank that gave me the loan, and I pay $6,000 a month to the seller for the next 5 years. That means my total debt payments are $19,000. So by the end of year 1, I made $600,000 in net income minus $228,000 in debt, leaving me with $372,000. After year 1, I was able to grow my revenue by 25%, and I'm gonna break down the methods I used to financially engineer success. So the first thing I focused on after buying the business was marketing. And this is important. I reached out to the best auto repair shop marketer in the game. By reaching out to people who are in the top of their field, you make sure that you don't get low quality service. I had my auto repair shop guy fix the website, run ads, and turn on SEO. While he was in the background working on my marketing digitally, I made sure to handle the in-person marketing. That means I found a great CRM and shop management system, which allows me to get as many reviews from my customers as possible. And I also started tracking my customer service in surveys. Now that my marketing was taken care of, I knew it was time to start financially engineering this company for success. The first task I took on was managing cash flow. I made sure to find one of the best credit cards in the game in order to ensure that I get the most bonuses for purchases from my shop. I applied for the Venture X card, which gave me 2 points for every dollar spent on any category, which for someone who buys thousands of dollars every month in parts can rack up to a lot of money. Next, I needed to control my cash flow. What I did is I reached out to all of my suppliers who I pay monthly for parts and supplies, and I asked them if I can get on net 30 or 60 day terms. The suppliers would give me another 30 or 60 days to pay them back, which allowed me to store up a lot more cash within the business and give me more breathing room on my cash flow. My business is cash on delivery, which means when we fix the car, the customers come and pay to pick it up. So there's no delay in the time when the work gets done and the car gets paid for. However, I found a strategy to allow more cash flow to remain in my bank account. And I was able to do that by taking customers with large purchase orders and asking them to pay for their parts up front. This allowed me to take in more cash while some cars sat in the lot for a long time waiting for big repairs. When running a business, if you truly want it to grow, you need to track progress. One of my first business coaches told me that if you don't measure your progress, you can never grow. So it's very important to manage and measure your business's KPIs. KPIs are key performance indicators. The best in class in business know their business and their industry's KPIs like the back of their hand. Every industry has different KPIs, so you need to learn what are the key performance indicators for your business. Here's a few of the KPIs that I have my personal assistant put into a file for me every week to review and track our shop's progress. First is I like to see my service advisors close ratio. I like to see that my service advisors are just below 50%. If my service advisors are consistently closing above 50%, that's most likely an indication that my prices are too low. Next, I track the average working order or the average ticket price. This gives me a quick rule of thumb to determine the value of each car we work on. The higher the ARO, the more profitable the shop is. The next KPI, which goes hand in hand, is AWRO. What is the total average written RO? Or how much did we present to the customer in work? It's important to understand how much is presented to the customer because that tells me how well my technicians are doing their inspections. So what you end up finding with these 3 KPIs that I just mentioned is that they're all connected. If my mechanics find $2,000 worth of work in the inspection and my service advisors sell 50%, that would leave the shop with an ARO of $1,000 for that car. By understanding this trifecta and what each KPI means, I'm able to make much better decisions on where the shop needs to move forward next. And this is another reason I love service-based businesses, because they're all about time and labor. You can track your tech hours and see how much they produce every week and see if they're above or below what you're paying them per hour. You can also check the shop's total utilization. If I have 5 bays in the shop and we're able to work on each car for 8 hours, that gives me 40 hours of total utilization that can be used to produce for the shop. If I see less than 40 hours being produced, that tells me that our bays are not being utilized at 100% capacity. While you never want to see a business at 100% utilization, because that means you're most likely overbooked, you do want to see it between 80 and 90. I personally like to see it between 70 and 90%. That tells me we're not totally overbooked, but we are very productive in getting great use out of the total equipment at the shop. When I first took over the shop, I went over the profit and loss statement, or net income statement, which allowed me to see what were the shop's expenses. I went back and negotiated all of the expenses that the previous shop owner had. By being able to save a few $100s here and there, it really adds up. I also made sure to switch all the accounts to a different bank account. That way, if there was any old charges or subscriptions that the previous owner had, they wouldn't be able to continue withdrawing money from the account. And you shouldn't worry about missing a bill to pay, because if it really is that important, you'll end up getting a letter or an email or phone call saying that you have an important bill due. And then that's when I know that this person can be added back onto the new account. But it's a quick way to get rid of all the unnecessary charges. After that, I had my guys focus on the speed in which they get the job done, as well as adding a buy now, pay later program for my customers, which allows us to bring in more cash for customers that otherwise would not have been able to purchase our service. An important rule in business is understanding service offerings. A lot of the times within your own business, there's other services that you're not offering that can actually bring in more income to the total business. So for me, I found that there were a lot of customers who had cars that they did not actually want to repair, and instead they wanted to sell them. I realized that this could be an opportunity for me to actually buy cars, start working on them, and then flip them on the open market. By utilizing the same assets I already had in my shop, which were mechanics and lifts and tools, as well as access to wholesale parts, I was able to start a whole other business model, which could generate me a few extra $1,000s every single month. A lot of these business owners that you're gonna be buying from have not updated with the times. That means most of these business owners are still using pencil and paper to do a majority of their invoices and work. By finding a great shop management system, as well as a great CRM and booking tool, this can allow you to take your shop to the next level. For me, I personally started using the industry leading standard, which is TechMetric, for all of my shop management needs. And then I combine that with my guys over at ShopGenie. ShopGenie is the leading CRM and marketing tool for auto repair shops. They've now just merged with TechMetric to make one of the most lethal marketing tools in the industry, hands down. ShopGenie allows you to have two-way text conversations with all of your customers, combined with an AI tracking tool that allows you to supervise all of your service advisors' conversations. This AI tracking tool will listen for inflections in conversation and also the context of what's being said in each conversation. So without you actually having to be in the shop, you can listen in on your service advisor's ability to interact and provide good quality service to your customers. This was absolutely necessary for me to be able to trust that while I'm not in the shop, my customers are still being taken care of by my employees. I know you guys have heard it all before, but hiring the best talent is the best way to grow business. Do not cheap out on finding low quality employees. Pay the best what they're worth and your business will thrive like no other. This is a lesson that every entrepreneur has to go through, but once they figure it out, the skies are the limit. What I was able to do to attract good quality talent was hire a mechanic headhunter who specifically works in finding the best mechanics in your area. While they're working full-time to find you great mechanics, you can focus on managing your shop. This works for any business in every industry. Don't waste time looking for poor quality candidates when there's people who've built a whole business model around finding you exactly what you need to keep your business afloat. So once I find a great employee, I want to keep them. So what I did is I created a pay for performance plan for each of my employees. What that implies is a base salary for all my employees, which should be enough to take care of the necessities for day-to-day life. But now each of the employees has an ability to earn more based off their effort and work. By adding a pay for performance plan, you ensure that you and your employees have aligned incentives. This is important for the continuation of growth throughout your business. Your employees aren't gonna work hard just because they like you. They're gonna work hard because they're incentivized to. That's the great thing about capitalism. Nobody's gonna work harder for someone else than they do for themselves. By aligning incentives, you can ensure that people are working the hardest for themselves, which benefits you in the long run. And now one of the most important lessons that I learned is that high quality information is the only differentiator between those that are actually successful and everyone else. I realized that for me, the best thing to do was to pay for the best information. While I didn't go to college, I still spend up to $50,000 a year on coaching and masterminds. I realized the best way to go and get information is to just pay for it. Why waste time trying to figure out things that someone already solved a long time for a price? Don't be afraid to pay money for great information. I use this rule for every business that I buy now. The second I get into a new industry, I'll go and find the best coach within that industry to teach me everything they know about the business. This saves me years of running around in the dark trying to solve for problems that I don't even know exist. I use the same method in my personal life. If there's something that I need to know, I will pay someone for a few minutes of their time just to get the answer to my questions. This is the mentality that allowed me to start buying multi-million-dollar businesses in my early 20s. And this is the same mentality that I've seen tons and tons of billionaires have that helps them get to levels that no one else has seen. It's because they have a hunger and deep desire for information fast, and they're willing to do anything to get it. Whether that's take a flight halfway around the world just to meet someone to discuss industry topics, or pay $20,000 for a 10-minute conversation. What the best in business understand is that good information is hard to come by. And I know that now that you guys have watched this whole video, you know that that's true. If you guys want to learn how to be a PE cowboy just like me, subscribe to my channel. And if you guys want to see more videos like this, click here.